out. Yes, yes, back again, live and direct. Me and the sauce, Big Ragu. Big Ragu, how you feeling today, Big Ragu?
Thursday night football, baby, and we're gonna break it down. We're gonna talk about the ACC tonight. What we're gonna do is we're gonna revisit some of the conferences, the Power Five conferences, and kind of get like a little update on what's going on. So keep everything relevant, keep the fans interested, and break it up with the chat. How you doing tonight, my man?
I'm doing absolutely fabulous, man. I had a so-so week last week. Actually ended up with some money from the NFL. Didn't go too far negative on the college, but was about even last week over all my different picks in different places. But I'm fired up this week, man. We entering week 5 right here. A lot of things are coming to light. The stats are coming to play. So I've been doing a lot of homework, running numbers and all that good stuff. So I'm excited to be here with you today and be able to go over this conference, the ACC conference, and also with all our people in the chat right here, Mr. Fat Fist, Danielle's in here, Paco Healy, Anna Marek, all them good people right here coming to hang out with us today. My man Josh Point O, Tease, Bookie Lover Q. Man, y'all showed up fast, man. And right. I appreciate y'all showing up. But
let's give a little plug.
Yeah, let's go. This is the Boss and the Sauce Show every Thursday night right here, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's go, Big Ro. Let's jump right into it, man. We let's get in the smoke.
Okay. Well, before we do that, one quick note. Tomorrow night on the Who-Bangin Lounge, we're going to feature an MMA content with Ann Marek and Mr. Fat Fist. So you guys get here bright and early tomorrow night at the same time, and we're going to jump on with them nice and early. They're going to break it down for us. So before we do this, before we get into that, I just want to kind of give that a quick plug while they're sitting in the chat with us. So, yeah, so we're going to do the ACC tonight, and basically DJ is going to cover the Coastal Division, and I'm going to do the Atlantic Division. So we'll start it off. We want to start off with Clemson because, they're the top dog in the conference. And we'll look at some of the looks that Clemson has given us so far this season, where they're headed and what they've done, ATS and, in that regard. So basically, they started out 4-0 early in the season. Right now, they've scored 169 points, and they've only given up 40. So the defense is kind of not dropped off a whole lot. A lot of people were worried about Clemson's defense. What they lost the whole front line basically to the NFL. 4 key players on that front line. They got solid middle linebacking play. They got real good secondary play. Now our quarterback Trevor Lawrence, a Heisman candidate, he kind of got off to a little shaky start early, had some turnovers, some picks, and I guess they kind of settled down after the beginnings. The first game they played originally they played Georgia Tech early, won 52-14. They had a cover there. They were 36.5 point favorite. They won 52-14, like I said. Over and under was 60. The game went over. Then the following week they took on Texas A&M at home, and they got the win there, but they didn't get the cover. They got a backdoor touchdown. Matter of fact, Jimbo Fisher, I wanted to choke his ass. With 2 seconds left, he called a timeout to punch it in. He wanted to score that touchdown. I think he had some money on the game himself. But anyways, that don't matter. They won. Texas A&M. There's a lot of people backing A&M in that game too, so that was a good look for them. Me, I was a little stubborn. I figured that they kind of wanted to make a statement in that game because you remember the year before, A&M took them down to the wire in College Station in Texas. They basically almost tried to tie the game with the 2-point conversion and get it. And then they played Syracuse. Now Syracuse is always a tough look for these guys. They always, they took them down to the wire the last 2 years, so I figured this would be a game that they wanted to make a statement, and they did. They won 41-6. And last week they had a little cupcake game against Charlotte. They won that game 52-10, and they covered. They were 41-point favorite. They won by a point. They covered by 42, and they were favored by 41. Go figure, right? So, anyways, their season seems to kind of be on autopilot right now, and you're not hearing a whole lot about them as far as the teams that are getting a lot of attention now in the SEC is LSU. There's a lot of big talk on LSU, and of course Georgia. Playing that tough game. Your team took Georgia down to the wire, Notre Dame, and that was a great look by them. And whoever was on Notre Dame with that, they were definitely on the right side. But what do you think about this Clemson squad going forward?
I was high on Clemson not having a tough schedule, and maybe they were gonna take a fall. But as the season came around, I had to respect this team. I'm really impressed by the defense at Clemson. They play sideline to sideline, and they're aggressive. That's a great formula to lead you far in NCAA football. So they got it together. Only downfall I see to Clemson right now is the offense. And it might not be a downfall. It may be just the way they play. They start off a little slow. They're not scared to go 3-and-out at the beginning of the games, get the looks and all that kind of stuff. And they kind of apply pressure as they going along. And as you can see, they're having a wonderful season. I'm not going to stand in their way, not one bit. As a matter of fact, I think Clemson is the new Alabama when it comes to the first half bet, and it's live. First half Clemson is a good bet right now, and I backed that one again this week in the first half Clemson. I like it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about those first half bets because I'm a big proponent of first half action because that's the book's equalizer. What they're trying to do now with these first halves, and they're coming in there and they're jacking the shit out of the numbers too. So the teams that are strong coming out of the gate fast, they can get there most of the times. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if I was you and anybody else that's doing that same look there, I would just keep doing it until you take an L or one or two L's back to back until the market catches up to them. So like I brought that up in the show, Jimmy's show earlier in the week. Like the thing, it's in the same conference, FSU. The gear I'm sporting here, they come out of the gates pretty fast, and and they're not really getting those kind of looks because the knock on FSU is they can't stop anybody. Their defense is bad, but if you break the games down and you look at them, FSU's they're scoring like 22, 24 points in the first half, and they're slowing up in the second half. And usually in those games, they're not big favorites. They might be a touchdown favorite or a 10-point favorite. Like I've been coming in this week, they're like 6.5 points. And I've already played that one. So I'm already on FSU first half. So I like that look there. That's a good look going forward.
That's what Boss and the Sauce Show right here every Thursday. So we'll keep intact with that. I'm already on it. So, it's just a look. You got to try to find the edges where you can get the edges, man. You want to go into the next team?
Yeah, go ahead. You want to go back and forth, or you just want to go right down the conference one side and then go over to the other side?
Let's go down one side at a time, and then that way we'll be able to take a look at who's where and that kind of stuff on each side.
All right. So the next team I got on the ACC Coastal, on the Atlantic. And I'm working out of the one of the magazine previews that we did. We did them all, but I'm looking at the Athlon and I'm looking at their projections and see. And this is another way we can kind of figure out how these guys in the magazines are projecting their teams because right behind Clemson they had Syracuse. Now Syracuse this season has been kind of a rocky start for them, and early in the year, they I guess let me get to their page real quick. But anyways. The look on Syracuse is they don't look like the second best team in the conference right now, as far as I can tell. So they went ahead and they took an early loss, a pretty good ass whooping by Maryland, right? Early in the season. Let me get to their page. I thought I had their page on my computer, but I don't. But I don't look at the book here. So just bear with me 1 second.
Go ahead, take your time.
Okay. All right. So basically, they started out with Liberty, right? So that shouldn't have been a no-brainer for them. And then they turned out and went to play Maryland. Now, the Maryland game was a big surprise because when they got down to Maryland, Maryland had something for them. And the funny thing was on that game, they were like a 2.5-point favorite, and then the line flipped back the other way to Maryland being a short number. And, man, did they really hit them up pretty hard in that game. And a lot of people were on that side too, which surprisingly enough, but we were trying to figure out why people were back in Maryland over Syracuse if they had these good looks coming in. But the word on the street was that Tommy DeVito, the quarterback, because they had Eric Dungy last year, who was like the heart and soul of that team. Anyways, they didn't perform well. They did move the ball up and down the field. They just weren't real efficient. I think he still had 3 touchdowns in that game with a pick. And but Maryland was just they just had all the answer. A lot more balanced team. A lot of different stuff going on the offense. Josh Jackson was the star of that game, and just the overall look of the team itself. They just didn't look like they were ready for prime time in that particular game. So Syracuse had some question marks about them, and then they had to go play Clemson the following week. So a lot of people were thinking, well, maybe it's just an off week for Syracuse there, and they didn't have all their ducks in a row. And then that Clemson got their revenge on them, not so that they beat them, but the 2 years prior. But they did take Clemson down in the wire in both of those games, and that was a statement game for Clemson also. And then last week, Western Michigan, and I think they did beat the Western Michigan squad. But I don't know if they won it convincingly. I don't have the score in front of me. Do you remember the score of that game last week?
I don't have it offhand. I don't have it offhand. I can look it up real quick, though.
Yeah, that's right. But more or less, I think the main thing with Syracuse going forward is I don't think they were where the projections in all the magazines were a little bit off on this one. There were some misreads. Now, there's a nice little page I like to go to, and if you guys ever want to check out the injuries on college, and that's good if you want to do like your comparisons on your depth charts, because I found out some stuff today looking at this page. I was like, wow, I didn't even know that. Like the Central Michigan game coming up, I looked on you go to Don Best Sports, right? DonBest.com, DonBestSports.com, and clicked on injuries. And because I know we heard some talk on the Central Michigan game that's coming up, and a lot of people were liking the over, including myself. And I went back and looked at it. I'm like, man, here we are looking at this, and Central Michigan's 3 quarterbacks. Dorminate is a starter; he's out indefinitely. Pearson is out, and the third QB, they undisclosed, he left game Saturday and is questionable in this game against Western Michigan. So. I mean, I didn't know that. Some of these smaller conferences, these smaller schools, you might not. You try to get all the data you can, but when somebody's talking about a game and you want to kind of look into things a little bit, and first thing you want to do is check out the personnel and see what's going on there first, right? To see how they're doing, with the numbers, the ATS numbers and what they're averaging on scores and against and whatnot. But I said, let's check out the player personnel. Hell, they got 2 tight ends and 3 quarterbacks banged up, and some of the defensive line and the wide receiver. So how are they going to score points without, the key players in that game? But anyways, the point I was trying to make is the Don Best Sports page is a nice little page if you want to check out injuries on the personnel, because we always know we get all the updates, through the fantasy pages with players and who on the pro side. But college is a little different look. You don't get that kind of information from those fantasy pages because there's no fantasy college plays.
That's what's up. Now, do you think this Syracuse team gets this horse under control and makes a season out of this somewhere in there, or you think they're doomed going down the stretch?
I think they will. I think the quarterback is DeVito. He's got to kind of get more comfortable in his role, because he had very little playing time last year. He would come up in some mop-up sessions for Dungy, like late in the game, that type of thing. But he didn't really have a whole lot of starts. I think Dungy one game got hurt, and he did have a pretty good game. I forget what game it was, but I remember seeing highlights and watching that game, and he didn't look bad there. So that's why I guess maybe that's why people projected. Maybe they based it off of that one game that he came in when Dungy was down and came in and performed pretty well. But going forward, I think, and the thing about the coaches over at Syracuse, Dino Babbers, he's a pretty good coach. And, he's got 3 years. Like you say, he's going in his 4th year in the program. a lot of his recruits, a lot of his players. So, given that look, you figure they'd be marching in step with what the coach had planned for them. But I mean, they're a quality team overall. They're just maybe just some of the players and the personnel is not kind of gelled. Like they did have coming back to start off 6-7, 6 on offense, 7 on defense. So it's not like they were a depleted squad where they only had like 3 returning starters and 4 returning starters. They had basically almost 3/4 of the team on both sides of the ball coming back. So, but yeah, I think they can pull it together. I mean, they got to play Holy Cross this week. No big deal. Then they come up against NC State on the road next week. So, and then they got, then you get into meat and potatoes. They got Pittsburgh, Florida State, Boston College, Duke, Louisville, and Wake. So, they could probably finish up. They'll probably be bowl eligible. I don't think they're going to finish at the top of the heat, but because on that particular side with the Atlantic, that's Clemson. Clemson's king of the hill there, and then everybody else kind of falls in line. The surprise teams are on that side is going to be Wake Forest right now, the way they're playing, and possibly NC State maybe creep up, and then I don't think Florida State's going to. I mean, Florida State, they can still salvage their season also. There's a lot going on there. They got some weapons. They just got to figure things out defensively and kind of maintain, their offensive strategy consistent. Their first half looks are good, but the second halves is where they've been struggling an awful lot. So I think Syracuse can kind of hold it down. I don't see them being a 9-3 team, more maybe like a 7-5, somewhere in that range. And maybe they get to 8 wins if they get really, really lucky, but it's going to take a lot of help for them to do that. Right now they're a split squad, so I see more, a little over 500 and a bowl game, like a middle December bowl game possibly.
We definitely have to keep a track of that as well. I don't know. BigRagoo looks like time. I don't know if we got the time tonight, but I don't think we'll make it over to going down each team by team on that side. I think we just have to go into like one of our overviews where we kind of look at the whole thing as a whole and just hold a few more discussions.
We could take the questions from the chat too. If they want to kind of chime in and have any questions.
Absolutely. We talking ACC football right here on the Boss and the Sauce show. Right here in week 5, we looking back, we looking forward. We're taking a look at the whole thing as a whole, and we're doing it as a group tonight. So the chat is open for questions, and let's get a quick rundown since you got that Anthelon Sports magazine. Shout out to Anthelon Sports. You got that Anthelon Sports magazine, BigRagoo, handy?
Yeah.
Give them a rundown of exactly what Anthelon had for them for that conference.
Sure.
For that side as far as ranking in the preseason. That way we get a chance to compare.
Yeah. So right now, right now in the beginning of the season they had projected Clemson in the Atlantic Coast division. They had Clemson number 1, Syracuse number 2, FSU number 3. And FSU, they're here's the thing, if we can go look at the standings in the conference, maybe that would help us out too. So we could possibly do that. But they had FSU number 3, NC State number 4. So, and then they had Wake Forest 5, Boston College 6, and Louisville 7. Now they're pretty on with Louisville there. So I would say they did a good job there. But the surprise, I mean, even though I think they're a fake 3-1 team, right now Boston College is in second place, and they had them next to last. But Boston College had some really easy wins, and some of those wins they had were, they were marginal wins at that. But they're 3-1, but they're 1-0 in the conference. Clemson's 4-0, 2-0 in the conference. Florida State is right projected where they need to be. They're 2-2 at number 3, and then Wake Forest, and they had Wake Forest and then NC State and Wake 4 and 5. And right now they're flip-flop. You got Wake is 4 and NC State is 5th. So no big deal there. And then everything else kind of fell in line. Louisville, but the team that they really missed the mark on was Syracuse. Syracuse is in the cellar. They're 0-1 in conference and 2-2 right now. So And that's the look over there. Now, if you want to look at the other side real fast, we can do that too.
Okay, but before we get into the other side, I can lead us in the other side, Big Ragu. Let's just get a little feeling overall, because I have a sum up of that side of the conference as well. Let's get a feel for what you feel is some teams to watch, maybe some teams to stay away from, and who you think is gonna come out of the race on this side of the conference over here.
A team I'm really high on, and I've been with them, most of the season, and they're playing tomorrow night is Wake Forest. They're 4-0, and all of those games have been out of the conference, by the way. So they have their first conference game tomorrow night. And who do we got on slate tomorrow? You think I know because I already got my action down on them. So basically, Wake Forest, they played Elon last week. No big deal there, right? So let's see.
They played Boston College this week.
That's right, Boston College. So yeah, they're playing at BC. Now BC's school, they what's surprising about Boston College? Like last year, you heard about A.J. Dillon was like one of the top Heisman candidates, and then Boston College, they were kind of sneaky good with the pass because they focused a lot of the attention that A.J. Dillon was getting. They didn't talk about BC's ability to put the ball down the field, but last year they were pretty good at that, so they had a real balanced attack. And their defense was pretty fair, pretty fair defensively. They were, probably like a top third defense in the conference. This year, you're not hearing a lot about them, so I don't know what happened with A.J. Dillon. Maybe it's because of the early looks of the teams that they were playing. They weren't getting like high profile, games for him to kind of be featured on. But this would be a good time to take a look at Dillon against Wake. Now, Wake defensively is probably not one of your better teams in the conference, but man, they can sure score points. They're averaging like about 40 points a game, and I think BC. Not that they're going to be up against it with them, but I think BC is going to have their work cut out for them, because they do like to run that hurry up. I mean, Boston College, they're 3-1, and they've been averaging 250 yards on the ground and almost 5 yards per carry. So, pretty decent numbers overall there. But like I say, competition-wise, who were they playing? They started out playing let's go look at their schedule real quick. So, okay, they started out with Virginia Tech, and they got the W there. Virginia Tech, that's another story. They're rebuilding. Then they played Richmond. They got a win there, but they got a loss with the ATS. Then they played Kansas, and that was like the eye-opener, because Kansas was supposed to be like a really down team, and I don't know if they were just overlooking Kansas and they just got caught with their pants down, or just Kansas is that good, which we don't think they are, but we know they're going to be well coached with Miles. And then they played Rutgers. So there's your 3 wins. They beat Tech, they beat Richmond, and they beat Rutgers. So realistically, Rutgers is not that good. Virginia Tech is in the rebuild mode, and Richmond, they should have won that with their eyes closed. And then Kansas, they figured they were probably going to beat them. So they probably thought they were going to be 4-0, 3-1 max, where they are 3-1, but the surprise loss came to Kansas. So anyways, that's their looks right there. And they're coming up against Wake tomorrow night. So
now you got any action on that?
Yeah, I'm on Wake Forest the first half. I'm -3, and I'm -6 for the game too. So I kind of see that's one of those first halves that was kind of halfway honest there. You know what I mean? So normally you figure like you don't get cheated so bad with that type of game because there's not going to be a lot of hype on them, but they can score points and they can move the ball at will a lot of times. So. But surprisingly enough, I'm looking at the BC defensive stats, and Wake Forest is getting like 9 yards per pass on average, and defensively they're giving up like 7 yards a pass, and same thing with Boston College, they're giving up like 7 yards a pass, but Boston College is only gaining about 7 yards a pass, so it's 2 yards per play better on the Wake Forest side on the passing game. And rushing wise, Boston College is about almost 5 yards, and Wake's about 4.5. But Wake's, surprisingly enough, Wake's defense is only yielding 3.5 yards on the rush, and Boston College is giving up almost 5 yards on the rush. So there's some defensive issues going on with Boston College, it looks like, on the run.
That's a nice look right there. Any other words on that side of the conference over here in the ACC? Of course, I'm sure you got Clemson to win that side of the conference anyhow. But
probably the only team we really probably didn't touch on, and Louisville, they're a mess right now. They're in rebuild mode. And Scott Satterfield's a nice coach that they have at Louisville. They recruit well too, and they're just in rebuild, first year coach. So that's going to kind of play out like Georgia Tech on the other side when you get to it. But the only other team we didn't talk about here is probably going to be NC State. And NC State, they're going to be playing FSU this week. And surprisingly enough, let's see, the line is 6.5 and 61.5 is the total. Now NC State, they started out 3-1 also. They beat East Carolina, West Carolina. They lost to West Virginia, and they beat Ball State. So those are probably, I'm not going to say easy games there, but, the first 2 games were definitely easy looks for them because they were like 40.5 points and 17.5 point favorite. Then they lost to West Virginia, which they were a 7-point favorite. They lost the game outright, 27, and they gave up 44 points. And they beat Ball State 34-23. They were a 20-point favorite, didn't cover that. So, but NC State, they're usually a pretty good defensive squad. They like to run the ball pretty well, and they usually give FSU a pretty good fit when they play them. That's one of their FSU's always tough out for them is NC State for some reason. You know how you always get that one team that always matches up pretty well with you year in, year out? That's the team. That's the team for FSU. So I'm not going to put FSU on upset alert, but if they're not paying attention, that's a team that can sneak up and punch them right in the face. So, but I'm on it. I took FSU first half in that one, -4.
That's right. I got you down right there on the screen, BigRagoo. Wake Forest first half -3, full game -6. But me on that side of the ACC, of course, I like Clemson to take the whole thing. That's an easy call. Like I'm trending with the Clemson first half. We got a 9-2 out of Alabama last year. Stick with this one for a little while. More than 2 losses. Go ahead and jump off of that trend. But I'm looking at the Phil Steele magazine right here. Phil Steele had it: Clemson, Florida State, Syracuse, North Carolina State, Boston College, Wake Forest, and Louisville at the bottom. So he missed it with Syracuse as well. He had them rated a little bit down, and he was on point, of course, with Clemson, and Florida State's a little not where it was at. So this conference right here is kind of not up for grabs on this side, but definitely everything under number 1 is definitely a draw in the hat right now. I don't see none of those on that side. Not Syracuse getting that thing together. North Carolina State looks good, but it's going to be all about longevity. Like you said, Boston College is having problems on the defensive side of the ball. It shows when they play. It shows in the score, obviously. And Wake Forest looks like the best creeper out of the group. And the Louisville team at the end, I don't know. This Louisville team may be stepping up a little bit. They may be getting it together. I don't know. But we'll see. Definitely if they rooted around a lot of freshmen, they'll fall off in the middle of the season. We got about a couple more games before that starts happening. But for now, they'll stay off team for me. But that's what it is for me on that side of the conference. Any last words on that side, BigRagoo?
No, just real top heavy with Clemson, and then a couple teams maybe taking a stab for second place, but second place is the first last place in my book. So only one can come out of the conference as a champ, and we know who that's probably going to be long term. But on your side, the side you're getting ready to do on the Coastal, man, that's a wide open look there, man. There's a lot of good teams in that side of the conference. A lot of competitive. A lot of competitive stuff going on over there.
Let me put my pick up right here. I got Clemson first half. Let me get the line in a minute. I'll say that for now. But let me jump over to the other half. Off of the Field Steel magazine right here on Boston the Saw Show every Thursday, Standard, 9 p.m. Eastern. Come check us out. We got a wonderful chat right there. We got Top Set in there. We got my man Paco Healy. We got Unbelievable in there. Bookie Lover Q. Tease is in the house. He's going to go put some post up, get some more people to come over. We got Josh Point O still hanging in there with us. We got a nice, good group of low baggers right there, as we should. Support our own. Appreciate everybody showing up right there. And we also have BigRagoo's daughter in the house there. I don't know where she went, but she's in the house hanging with her. Hats off to her for having this wonderful guy.
She dipped in tonight because she's doing a lot of schoolwork. So she said she wanted to stop in and say hello. So I said, come on in, baby girl.
That's right. Much love, much love. And thanks for lending us your father for these great moments we get with this sports betting. But this Coastal Division, like you said, is wide open. I'm going to go down Phil Steele's list. First, he had Miami in the number 1 spot. Virginia's check number 2. Virginia number 3. Well, it was tied for number 2, Virginia and Virginia Tech. Then he has Pitt coming in 4, North Carolina 5th, and Duke 6th, and Georgia Tech dead last. Now, in actuality, right here today on ESPN, it comes out Virginia Cavaliers number 1, the North Carolina Tar Heels are number 2, Duke is number 3, Virginia Tech is number 4, Miami's number 5, Pittsburgh's number 6, and he hit it right on the nail with Georgia Tech being last. And there ain't nothing wrong with him hitting the bad ones. That's bad. That's a good thing in the Kappa world. You know, one thing when you know a team is bad, you know, you got a chance to make some cases on the other side or vice versa. But that's what it's looking like over here. Now, what jumps out to me, Virginia Tech and Virginia, they are just about tied right now. I totally agree with that, but they tied the number 1 position, if you ask me, in this side of the division. But Pitt is definitely a surprise. The way Pitt looked, I don't know about if they could steal the conference, but they definitely a really good team. I like Pitt. Now, the North Carolina, I think this story is going to die out as we go down. Now, the good coaching over there is good. The quarterback is nice, but we've seen they can be picked on in spots. You know, they had them coming out 5th last year. I mean, this year, and they kind of played about 5th, but they're a little bit expected a little bit better right now because of their record. They're number 2. They're 1-0 in conference. They're 2-2 overall, but I expect that to change as the season go on. Duke, I expected a little better than Duke, but looking at Duke's schedule, they kind of got thrown in the fire on a year that, you know, they didn't really have all the pieces in place, and they got to work a little harder than last year. But the schedule definitely didn't help that team. And Georgia Tech team, dead last, new system, new coach, nothing's working right. Only thing that's been effective over there is they've been able to cause turnovers, and they can play some good special teams. They give a good effort over there. But as far as in sync with the offense, not working. They're running the poor quarterback to death over there, and the defense not working as well. They don't know when to blitz, when to stay, or anything like that. But as far as a pick this week, I like Virginia playing Notre Dame. Virginia's ranked in this matchup right here. They're tied first in their side of the division, yet they're getting all these points and double digits and stuff. It's always a true test when Notre Dame has to play an ACC opponent because we all ACC in the other sports except football. So they're trying to steal the spotlight. They're used to the team. They're not afraid of Notre Dame, none of that stuff. I think Virginia got a shot not only to beat the spread, but they could be the one to beat us right after the Georgia loss. We expect good things out of them because people thought so much about Notre Dame. But this Virginia team is a focused, well-oiled machine, and they're going to come to play ball. And I like them as a pick this week along with this Coastal Division. How you feel about this Coastal side?
I like it. It's an exciting side. I mean, I'm really high on Virginia. You know, Bronco Mendenhall, you know, he's kind of went in there and he's in his 4th year. He's done his thing with that locker room, and that's a well-coached team. They're not he's a very defensive-minded coach, as we know, and I mean, you were real impressive what they did with Florida State, the week ago, and then they kind of held them at the goal line to get that W at home, and that kind of propelled things. And I think that's going to carry a little momentum going in against Notre Dame this week. No, the key thing for me for Notre Dame is going to be, how will they rebound, because they took that dream crusher loss between the hedges down in Athens last week. They know that their national championship aspirations have basically been gone. But I don't think it's the whole season, because the thing is, with the SEC, they could take a loss and come back and win, and come back and one loss win and play in a national championship game. Notre Dame is not going to get one loss and get to the playoffs, unfortunately. That's just the way the system works. But hopefully Kelly can rally the troops and, get them ready to play at South Bend against a tough Virginia squad. I mean, Virginia, they're only giving up just barely over 2 yards a rush, less than 75 yards a game on the rushing side. Notre Dame, the other side, they're giving up some ground on the rushing. They're giving up over 200 yards a game on the ground. So, overall passing wise, they're not a pass heavy team, Virginia. So that might be a good look to the under, but it's only like 48. So I don't know if I'm thrilled about that either. But they both can pass pretty decent. Notre Dame throws for 300 and around 240 for the other squad there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. What do you think the outcome of this game is going to be?
I say Notre Dame by like 10 or 7. I think Notre Dame jumps out quick and leaves the back door open, and Virginia comes and makes something out of it. The guy Book, he hasn't really had to react and respond to nothing major, and when he did have to react and respond in the Georgia game, he showed up short. So I don't got a lot of hope in the offense right there. It's just a matter – I think we probably lose 2 more games at max for this season, but definitely probably 1 more game somewhere. We probably lose to SC. Usually in years like this is when they get us. But as far as us having a good season and going to the playoffs, if USC turns their stuff around and we get to beat them as a quality opponent, we might have a chance again, BigRagoo.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. College football, you're going to need some help with the Power 5 stumbling along the way, because you're going to get the 1 team, maybe 2 from the SEC, and you're going to get somebody coming out of the ACC, which is going to be Clemson. So basically, you're going to probably have 2 SEC. It's the biggest bunch of BS. I hate it because the way they set it up, the SEC's stealing money every year from these guys, man. It really is. But that's why I can't stand them in that regard. I mean, they do put good football teams on the field, but just the way the system's put together is that's a whole nother subject, though. We'll get off of that right now. But anyways, I like Virginia a lot. I do like this Virginia team. I think they're the classier team in the ACC Coastal right now. Not to say that I think Virginia Tech's a little overrated, though, in my book, just because the thing with them is, this is Bud Foster. He's been the architect of that defense back when Frank Beamer was around for all those years. They kind of put that program on the map together. I mean, he's been there for 30 plus years, and he announced his retirement, at the beginning of the season. So. And I think Fuentes, when he came in a couple of years back, there's some issues that I hear going around it. He's kind of possibly lost a team in the locker room, and just there's a lot of not dissension, but there's not the focus is not there, and it's showing. Even though they have, they're 2-1, they scored like 83 points so far in 3 games. Not too bad, but we'll see. I mean, they got a big game coming up. We'll see what happens the rest of the way for that team. But Virginia, I think Virginia is probably the nicest team in that side right now at this current point in time in the season. It's only 4 games. We still got another 8 games to go. So long season ahead.
So Virginia Tech game looks like it's going to come down to be a make or break game for both of the teams, depending on the results of some games ahead of it. But if you had to pick one to take the number 1 spot from those 2, which one would you give it to?
Oh, right now, I mean, I would definitely say Virginia without a doubt.
Virginia, without a doubt. So you think Virginia's a little better than Virginia Tech? Now, Virginia Tech has been playing pretty good lately, but I don't know if the competition levels really been there. But the turn of both of their season is always once they play each other. It's usually make or break. That's a really tough game for both of them. Virginia Tech, a Virginia game, but Miami on this side, we kind of look past Miami quarterback issues over there, amongst other issues. What do you think about this Miami team, especially you coming right there from Florida?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Miami games in my day over here, and I remember all the glory days of Miami. They're almost as bad as the Gator fans are, Miami fans, but that's okay. They used to tease us with wide right every year. We always missed a field goal at the end of the game, so they would beat Florida State every year, or a couple of times. But Miami, they brought back Diaz to take the squad over. He was the ex-defensive coordinator, had the job at Temple for a day, and then came back home to Miami. So everybody was excited about that. Then they had the quarterback, battle going on with the transfer from Ohio State that came down, and he lost a job. And then the starter from last year, he lost his job. So now they got this kid Williams, which is a pretty good athlete. They have some offensive line issues. They got great defense. We know that. With the turnover chain and that linebacker, they had three linebackers that were NFL bound, and they kind of hung in there to kind of, stay for their senior year. So if Miami can shore some things up on the offense, with the offensive line and clean up some of that mess they got going up on the front side of the offense, they could contend. It's 2-2. The season's young for Miami. They started out with Florida, which we seen that game when we were down in Miami, and then they lost to North Carolina. That's the kind of game that everybody got interested in North Carolina after that game, right? And then they played two weaker teams of late. They played Bethune-Cookman and Central Michigan, which they got 2 W's there. And now the rest of the way they got Virginia Tech. They got a bye week this week. Miami does, so they got to come out and play Virginia Tech next week. So that'll be the telltale sign for them and Virginia Tech going forward. So those are two teams that are kind of like in the same boat on different ends of the spectrum. Miami's got some offensive issues, and Virginia Tech's got some defensive issues. So we'll see how that pans out for both of those teams next week.
Yeah, it looks like scheduling wise, somebody's got to bump off somebody, and they may bump off somebody else. But I guess you could say absolutely the playing field is still wide open. Miami, after Virginia beats Virginia Tech, if they beat them both or whatever, they still got a shot to hold it down the number 1 spot. But before we jump out of this conference, I think one more thing I want to know your input about, and I'm sure the chat over there wants to hear something about, is the North Carolina team. What do you think about this North Carolina team?
I think for first year, not the first tenure for Matt Brown. This is the first time in a long time there. Young team. The surprise is the quarterback that they got, Sam Howell. He was really high on him coming out of spring training or spring games, spring session. He's a true freshman, and the kid's a stud, man. I mean, I've seen him do some stuff in those couple games. There's 2 quality ones they had early in the season when they beat South Carolina the first game, and they came from behind when Miami took the lead, and he drove that team down the field to score late in the game with a minute to go. So, I mean, nothing but bright things on the future for the North Carolina team. Overall, maybe now, things kind of settled down for them. They probably overachieved a little bit early on, but they got some good quality wins. So they got a lot of people's attention. I think going forward, they'll probably wind up in the middle of the pack. They probably won't contend for the championship on that side. Like I said, I'm really high on Virginia. Don't forget last year now Pittsburgh was right there at the top of the heap with this thing, and Pittsburgh, they had a real quality game, a good game against Penn State last week, and I wouldn't count Pittsburgh out as far as not necessarily winning the title out there, but they're going to hand some L's out on that side of the conference going up, going up the rest of the way out. So they're mainly in that side. You're going to look at Georgia Tech and possibly I don't know, outside of Georgia Tech. It's a pretty balanced conference. It doesn't drop off that far. If you have Virginia, you could take Virginia Tech, Miami, and probably Pittsburgh, and I'd put them all together. And then maybe just a class below that I'd probably say be Duke and possibly North Carolina. Those two teams there, and then the rest of the three. There'd be a short second, Virginia on top, and then Georgia Tech at the bottom. Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, Miami, and those three teams would probably be like equals in my book right now.
That's what's up, man. Well, that wraps it up right there. That's a good look back on the ACC conference right here, both sides on the Boston the Sauce Show, me and the Sauce hanging out. We got a nice crowd in the chat. Same old guys. Prince of the City just stepped in here. Paco Healy, Josh Point O, Bookie Lover Q. Y'all know what it is. Salute for y'all hanging out. And shoot us some questions. We're about to jump into this week's picks, stuff we might want to put y'all on, our leans, our looks, stuff like that. You got some of that kind of stuff ready for him, Big Ragoo?
Yeah.
What about that meatball player today? You got a meatball player today?
Well, for tomorrow, I got a meatball play for tomorrow.
Hey, I got a meatball play. This is gonna be my first meatball play too. This is my meatball play right here. I like to take Ole Miss plus the points against Alabama. Now, I was looking at Ole Miss early in the season. 10 returning players on defense, played pretty sound together as a group. The offense is terrible, and they lost to Cal, and they're a defensive team. They made Cal look great, but they playing this Alabama team. It's more of a – it's not, that was out of conference right there. It's more of something that they are used to, and I think that defense, older senior group, can hold them off from 30-something that it's at. It's pretty high up there, and Alabama has not covered the spread already this year. The quarterback, to me, if you put a little pressure on him, he can have trouble. If you put him some pressure coming from the outside where he has to step up in the pocket instead of out, it's going to be a disaster in Alabama. So my meatball play of the day. Now, what I understand the meatball play is, Big Ragoo, is wait. It's a play that if you win, good, you got a meatball, but if not, it's like a meatball to the face, right? Is that how you explained it?
It's going to be like a play that it's going to be like a big, what they call like a saucy play, something that you want to throw out there and you want to sink your teeth into. That would be the meatball. Then if you don't hit the meatball play, then you get egg on your face or something like that. Who the hell knows? But a meatball play is supposed to be like, your big, the play that you really want to go after and take a swipe after something, not a chalk play, but something like nice and juicy, something, it's got some substance to it.
I thought on the inside, if it don't happen out, it's like taking an egg or a meatball for the day. So that's how I feel about that game. I think it's a good angle on what I know, not nothing that I just wanted to jump right on, but it's kind of saucy to me. But at the same time, if I get blown out by Alabama, that's like taking two meatballs to the eye.
Right. There you go. I mean, it's something that you would take it. It's kind of like you're putting yourself out there a little bit to not everybody's going to step in front of Alabama, so that would be a big meatball play. You know what I mean? So if it comes in, you look like a hero. If it doesn't, so what? You took there
it is. I like that's my meatball play. First meatball play. I'm gonna keep track of that. My first meatball play right here on the Boston the Sauce Show. But you got a good look for the people out there?
Yeah, I was looking at the Penn State Maryland game. That's another that would be like a kind of a meatball play because you got Penn State's ranked 12th. They're traveling down to Maryland to play that game, and it's a Friday night game. And I believe last year that this is a game that's kind of got a little bit of animosity towards it because I know for a fact that the coach Franklin he's a real a real winner from what I understand. I know Babana loves this guy too, right? He can't stand him either, but he's not a very classy guy. He likes to break it off in you, that type of guy. And I know he's really famous for stealing a lot of these recruits in the DC area. I think Prince of the City said something about that too, if I remember correctly. Right, Prince? You can put that in chat too. But anyways, I know they played a little tough against them years gone by, and they haven't shown me a whole lot. This Penn State team, going in, like Pitt took them down to the wire. They had some easy wins early on, and there's a lot of talk around this game coming up where Maryland, could maybe put these guys on upset alert, possibly. So maybe this could be a good opportunity to sprinkle some cheese on that meatball and take Maryland plus the points, and maybe look for the upset. Maryland at home maybe takes Penn State out tomorrow night.
I like that. Now, I actually capped that game too. I really like the under in that game. When I was capping the game, Maryland had a lot to offer on the numbers. I mean, it is a small sample size, but they have a lot to offer as a team as far as the number go. Their defense is ranked number 27. What else on here? I seen they also have a good interception rate. They average 1 interception per game. So the defense is really nice over there. I like this defense. They could pull it off. But the determining factor on this one is a lot of the energy that they had this year playing came from the death of a player last year. They decided to, contribute this year to him. And that's why they fired off real fast. Now, are they going to sustain that momentum and keep that going and keep the fire lit? If they get a win right here or get anywhere close to it, I absolutely believe in them, and they still focused on the depth of their fellow teammate. But if they happen to tuck their tail in this game, this might be the downturn of the Maryland team. But one good shot more with Maryland, I like it. But I also like the under in this one because they're both bringing defense to the table.
Yeah, no, that's a good look. I like that look a lot there. Yeah, Maryland. I mean, they took that tough loss because they came out off of that big game with Syracuse, and I think they kind of got, they got that Temple game. That was another game that kind of the line shifted one way to the other. Against Maryland, and Temple got them. Temple beat them that game, but I think they'll regroup. They got athletes. They've recruited very well, like DJ Durkin. When he was asked to leave that program, the interim coach stepped up and took that squad, and he's still doing a fairly good job with them. So they have athletes, they got talent. So it's not going to be like a pushover game for Penn State. So I like Maryland and the points. It wasn't a play that I gave out, but the more I started looking at it, and it is a Friday night game. There's a very limited card. There's like 5 games tomorrow night. The other game I like is that Cal Arizona State game. You got any looks on that game?
No, I'm constantly watching this coaching group right here at Arizona State. I counted them out, and it looked real impressive as of late. I thought the defense was a little undersized, but the defense is still lights out. They were really good last year. They couldn't find the offense last year. Now this year, they made a couple advances toward the offense, but they remain a really good defense despite losing a little size to some players moving on and stuff like that. So I like your look with you taking Arizona State and Herm Edwards in them, right?
Yeah, I'm taking Arizona State. That's a spot play for me because of the fact that Cal taking that W against the SEC team coming back home, and I'm not going to say they're overlooking because I'm trying to think who's Cal got the following week up. I don't know. I didn't look at that yet, but I don't think it's a sandwich spot for them. I think it's just one of those things that's got the feel for Arizona State got slapped at Colorado after their big win at Michigan State, and I'm not going to say that it was a huge win for Cal to beat the SEC team, but it's a good look for them, to come in and travel east and beat the SEC team and then come back home and not say they're going to get comfy sitting at Berkeley or anything like that, but I think it's a good spot for two defensive teams, that kind of play a little different style of football, but at the same time, they're in an underdog role. I like Arizona State, with the 4.5 points. I think that's just a good look. I expect this low scoring game, a tight game. I don't think no one's getting blown out either way. It's a game that they could possibly, steal from Cal. And then I know last year, they had some L's on the road, but this year so far, I think they've won their two games that they had on the road.
I like it. I like it. Now, I gave out a lot of my shows. I mean, a lot of my plays on the shows I had earlier this week. One that stands out to me that I really like is the over in the Temple game. I really like that game with Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech coach hadn't been coached at Temple last year, may find some ways for Georgia Tech to get some scores, but I don't think Georgia Tech can hang with the offensive attack from Temple. Temple, the whole game is going to be decided in the over going on two things. One is Temple's finding a run game because Georgia Tech gives up the most yards in the run game. So if they can develop the run, that's going to open the pass to what they do, and that'll cause the score to go up right there. And the other thing is Georgia Tech still working on the system, doing some things right, averaging one interception each game, ranked number 87 defense. They're giving up 274 on the ground, which should result in points for Temple. And I'm expecting them to score at least 21 points in this one and let Temple do the rest and get this one over right here. It was at 53 over at the beginning, but I think it's down a little bit from 53 right now. I'm not absolutely sure. But that's one of my plays that I really, really like. I should have made that my 2-star play right there because I really, really like that play. And also, I'm looking at taking I was looking at that Wake Forest game, and I was going to take BC. I was figuring Dylan showed up. But after your breakdown, and I seen that twinkle in your eye, BigRagoo, whenever you go, you're not the type that's gonna go first half and full game on no type of whim. So I'm definitely off that, and I was just going on the edge of a few arguments that I heard on the other side. I woke up this morning and I watched the ACC Network interview with the running back over there at FSU, and talked about A.J. Dillon a little bit on the show. And I was just looking at it from that point of view. I was looking at getting involved, but I heard your breakdown. And I was like, nah. But another one that I need help with that I really want to get involved with is Iowa State. And y'all can help me in the chat on this one too. Yeah, Iowa State and Baylor. I like this Iowa State team. Now, they beat Iowa this year, right? I believe they beat Iowa this year.
Yeah, they played early in the season.
It was really tough, and they beat Iowa. That was a big game for their self-confidence, and I think their confidence is enough that this may be the sleeper team that's going to end up with a very good record going down the stretch right here. What do y'all think about this Iowa State team? And it's a short number too.
Yeah, I think that game went from did Baylor open up the favor, or did Iowa State open up the favor in that one? Because I think it's up to 3 points now. The last time I looked at it.
Yeah, I see Iowa State -3. Did that change any?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's 3. What'd you get on it? 3?
Let me take a look at it. I haven't made a move on it. No, I haven't made an exact move on it. I was saving something for the show to go over on the show.
I got you.
So we could get everybody involved on at least one pick. And this one I seen a lot of volatility, a lot of action on this one now. This one is still at Iowa State -3, which is a short number for a team with really, really good defense and a really motivated group on offense. And they're not playing big bad nobody. They're just playing Baylor. What y'all think about that? Anybody out in the chat on that game today? My man Paco Hilly said he loves it. And it's -3, -105.
Yeah,
you can't beat that. Josh Point says I'm with you, but I had to guess it's too early. So, I don't know. Can we make that an official play on the show, or should we travel back and see that a little later.
I mean, if you got a good read on it, I didn't. I was going to tell on that game. I didn't really break it down, so I'm not going to be much help to you. I mean, if I start looking at it, I could probably look at it 2.5. It opened up 2.5 is at 3, so you get 3 plus 100 minus 105. So 3 looks like there's a little pushback on. It looked like it probably crept up to 3 because it's like Paco says it's minus 105. I see plus 100. I see. So I don't see a minus 110 at any of the offshores. It's all either plus 100 or minus 102, minus 105, plus 100. So, and the total's been hit a little bit. Total's down to 55 at Pinnacle. So down 2 points. Now Iowa State. Let's take a look at their numbers here.
I'm taking a look right here. I see they average about 9 yards a play. Baylor's averaging about 7. But on defense, look like that Baylor's defense is only averaging 3.7 yards a play, and Iowa's defense is averaging 4.7 a play. Iowa State is pretty much a balanced team. They pass 54% of the time at a 72% completion rate, and they rush 45% of the time. But Baylor is mostly run. They're 58% on the ground, 41% in the air, and they do really good on third down over there. So that's just a quick look at these two teams. I see it's a nice battle. That 3 is really, to me, the line setter saying they don't really know. You get 3 points just for being the home team. So really that's like a pick 'em. So if I had to take pick 'em in this one, I'd definitely take this team in Iowa State with the hot hand. Now, Iowa State is 2-1 ATS. They were, as a matter of fact, they lost to Iowa. I forgot about that. They lost, but they covered because it was a 1.5 spread. So they covered in that one. And they were minus 22.5 first game out against Northern Iowa. They only won by 3. I mean, I don't hold that against them. That's the first game of the season. Then they played another in-state rivalry, Iowa, which is the bigger opponent. They slugged it out. They covered, and then they played Louisiana Monroe, which is supposed to be a really tough defensive team, but they put up 72 points on that, beat them, covered by 17. And now they play this Baylor team, which is minus 3. The over-under is 55. And let me see what Baylor looks like, ATS. Now, Baylor is 3-0, but they're only 1-3 ATS, but they haven't played nobody at all. They played STEF Austin. I'm not even sure who that is. They played Texas San Antonio, and they played Rice. And all of these games, they've been the favorite by over 20 points. And now they're minus 3 against this Iowa State team. I think that that's a good spot. The line setters may have overlooked. They don't have a good handle on that game right there. And basically you're getting a team like Iowa State who has already played Iowa, Louisiana Monroe, quality opponents, and they are 2-1. And you get this 3-0 team that's a little prima donna. I think Iowa State gets a hold of these guys.
Yeah, they got. You know what? And if you look at they escaped that Northern Iowa, but let me tell you that Northern Iowa is a pretty good FCS school team. They're 29-26. They were favored by 20.5, so they might have came out a little sleepy in that game. But yeah, they survived that one. Then they played a close game in Iowa, quality loss there and out. Then when they went to play Louisiana Monroe, they really opened that game up. They won 72-20. And if over and under was 51, they put over by themselves. Now, Baylor, like you said, Stephen F. Austin, Texas San Antonio, and Rice. So they played 3 really weak opponents in the state of Texas. So realistically, they haven't gone up against anybody as a quality play yet. And Rice held them down. I tell you what, this friggin' Rice team, man, they like holding pretty good teams back. They held Army down 21-7. They held this team to 21. So maybe we better put Rice on our radar pretty soon, huh?
Yeah, they might be coming around the corner. That's one thing I was looking at this week too. I was looking at the bottom teams because a good thing to know in these weeks right here because, you know, it's really a small sample size. The numbers are getting truer and truer as the season progresses. So one of the things I was looking at is who's absolutely at the bottom. Because after last week, I took Arkansas in the San Jose State minus 21, and they got whooped on by San Jose State. As soon as I cut the game on, I'm sitting there watching the game, and I'm looking at Arkansas State. Arkansas. I said their size really well. They look like a college team playing a high school team. And then they bring out this quarterback, and they point to Justin Bieber. This quarterback has something where he wears Justin Bieber's shirt under his uniform. People in the stands. I said I didn't want to be on the side of the Justin Bieber quarterback. I just immediately turned the game. It went upside down. I felt bad, so had to do a little more research this week, and really find out, you know, who these players are that I'm backing. And I'm liking that Iowa State. I'm liking that Iowa State, but I'm gonna leave it as a lean so everybody can come over with us tomorrow on the Who-Bangin Lounge. Now, give them another shot of what's gonna be going on tomorrow in the Who-Bangin Sports Lounge.
Yeah.
Big Ragoo.
All right, so what we're going to try to do moving forward, and it's always about our guys in the chat. That's what that show's all about. It's just like this one too, but we get a little more interaction, live interaction with our guys in the chat. So we're going to feature Nick, Mr. Fat Fist. You know, he lives in South Florida. And then we're going to bring on our guy, Anna Clint, who lives out in Arizona. So when I was trying to set up the time for him, Nick was real excited, and so was Anna. I mean, he was like, man, you can really have me on. He was really pumped up about it. So what we're gonna do tomorrow night, we're gonna try to set the format up, is a lot of us guys, I know I've watched some MMA fights, I'm sure you have and whatnot, but I want to know, or I want to be a bit more of an educational process for people who want to get involved with, you know, putting wagers on MMA fights, you know, and I try to tell them, let's try to start out like, you know, what your thought processes are, and, you know, how you guys cap the fights, and, you know, how did you get, you know, we're going to bring them on, you know, get their backgrounds and whatnot, but it's kind of like MMA capping 101. That's what we want to try to do from a beginner's level. So this way we can try to get some good reads on, you know, how to identify dogs and what to look for in fighters and that type of thing. So our first segment tomorrow night, probably between 15 and 30 minutes. It'll be me and you. Of course, the chat will be involved, and we're going to have on live Nick and Clint, you know, breaking down MMA, handicapping 101.
That's what's up. And I got questions because when it comes down to MMA and stuff like that, I usually only play when I'm in Vegas. There's a good fight on. I go right to Twitter. I go right to Clint. I go right to Mr. Fat Fist, see what they on, and all the ones that are plus money, I usually drop something on it and won quite a few times doing that. So quick thing, my man Bookie Lover Q said he happened to jump on the Sports Keg, and Sports Keg was giving us a shout out right now on the Sports Keg show. You know, that's some of our fellow low baggers. Also got the link to them in our description as some of our people to follow here on YouTube. Shout out to the Sports Keg. You know, it's all one big happy family at the end of the day. But I think it's almost time to put a bow on this one, Big Ragoo. It's been a wonderful Boss in the Sauce show. Once again, we're going to be coming on every week, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be reviewing all these conferences, going over this good information. So have your pens and pad ready, your questions and all that, and we can have a really good time right here on the Boss and the Sauce. Any last words for him?
Yeah, that's basically it. The same thing, you know, every Thursday night, same time, and then the Who-Bangin Lounge on Friday evenings. And don't forget that DJ and I were on the Low Bag. DJ, are you on every Wednesday with him too now? Or you just popped in this Wednesday? What's your dates on Jimmy's show?
I haven't had official days. I usually be doing Mondays and Tuesdays, and now I did Wednesdays, but for the most part, Monday and Friday for sure. And don't forget, we got a special guest too outside of the MMA guests that we have on the show. It's going to be one of our good friends from Canada who's in the chat right now as we speak. My man Josh Point O is showing up with us tomorrow to hang out. Make sure you get your cup full and all you need to hang out with us tomorrow. Sometimes we last a long time on that show, so be prepared for it. And I'll see all you guys tomorrow. Thanks for showing up. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate all 9,000 people watching right now. Even the guy in the closet that's at work. I appreciate you. But we're going to get up out of here.
All right. Well, listen, it was a pleasure being with you guys again as usual. And we'll see you tomorrow night. And guess where I'll see you?
I'll see you at the window.
At the window.
Have a good one.
See you tomorrow.
So